Rita Braver is in conversation with Rachel Maddow, who shares a story most of us never learned from our history books.
Rachel Maddow has spent the last few years sifting through a ream of sobering stories for her new book, Prequel, An American Fight Against Fascism.
It was about white supremacy.
Not only were there lots of Americans who didn't want us to fight, but there was a lot of them who wanted us to fight on the other side.
With the Germans,
Nazis.
with the Nazis. Maddow, who of course hosts a show on MSNBC, first explored the story in a series of podcasts focusing on surprising connections between Americans and Nazi interests.
The organizational diversity of people who were on that side of the calculus ahead of World War II is shocking to me. There was a group of very far-right extremists that were meeting secretly all over.
And this New York armory essentially became a supply depot for another anti-Semitic militia, the Christian Front.
What?
Murder a bunch of congressmen, to firebomb and bomb a bunch of sites in New York City that they thought would be sensitive enough that they would set off essentially a race war. Was seen as a form of sort of patriotic anti-communism. House Un-American Activities Committee, which had just started, heard from a pair of witnesses who brought them a story about this place. These guys came to Congress and said, those Jews are plotting a takeover of the United States to destroy the United States and put the Jews in charge, and we're here to blow the whistle on it.
What?
And this conspiracy theory they hatched about this place, this room, was part and parcel of trying to turn Americans into feeling about the Jews the way Hitler was making Germans feel about the Jews.
What?
So this address, right? And Hitler had plenty of tentacles in the U.S., including right on Riverside Drive in Manhattan.
So George Sylvester Viereck lived here in a beautiful 10-room apartment. He was very well off, and the reason he was so well off is because he was the highest paid and most senior Nazi propaganda agent in the United States. Nazi propaganda into the United States, they'd persuade a member of Congress or a senator to put his or her name on it, insert it into the congressional record. Once it's in the congressional record, they can send it out in bulk all over the United States. A circus. The prosecution is actually presenting a pretty compelling case, and 7 months into it, the judge dies. And this conspiracy theory and the American people start to turn their attention to the war rather than to any sort of fight like this at home. And this conspiracy theory, and this conspiracy theory, and this conspiracy theory.
Though Maddow's book takes place 3/4 of a century ago, there's a reason it's called Prequel.
And this conspiracy theory, and this conspiracy theory, and this conspiracy theory, and this conspiracy theory.
After all, it was written in the wake of the attack on the United States Capitol. Do you think we are now seeing a resurgence of fascism in our country?
I think we are seeing another iteration of the ultra-right. And it has a lot of the elements that are the most worrying things that you look for when you're looking at a democracy that's in trouble of yielding to authoritarianism. We see violence intruding into the political process. We see the scapegoating of minorities and dangerous conspiracy theories about
A rise in anti-Semitism.
Rising anti-Semitism is an absolute red flag. Anti-Semitism almost always goes with the rise in fascist ideation. And it's just something that we can't ignore. There's a history here that we ought to learn. Americans before us, just as smart, just as resourceful, just as funny, just as clear-minded as any of us could ever hope to be, fought those fights before us. We can learn from what they did. No. And this conspiracy theory, 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 and this conspiracy theory.